Right, I am here Sunday morning in the UK, Sunday evening for you over in Aussie, with my really good friend David Cowan, and we've got lots of interesting stuff together that we're going to discuss about leveling up. I want to also talk about overconsumption as a human addiction, and by that I'm talking about all sorts of areas. But what's happening with you, David, and how is it where you are in Australia?
How you doing, Catherine?
Good.
Yeah, things are good. It's quite hot today, actually. It's been last couple of days have been pretty hot. We had a nice cool, usually it gets quite hot in summer, but we had a nice cool week, and then it got hot again. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good. I had an interesting day yesterday. I'll tell you about later on. But other than that, yeah, everything's going well. We're getting a lot of live acts coming to Perth in Australia at the moment, which is great. So a lot of music, a lot of acts like comedians and other events that aren't like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like almost back to normal, but we all know it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to make it into their new normal, not ours. So one of the things we were going to start with today is about sort of leveling up as individuals and not over consuming, because there's a fine line, isn't there, David? And David and I discuss this a lot off camera, but about really being conscious of what we're spending our time on. And what's come up for that for you recently in terms of what are your realizations on a personal level around that?
Yeah, I think it's very easy to fall into this pattern. As a human, our life is built up of habits, so and patterns that run those. So it's very easy to fall into a pattern, sometimes unconsciously or not, without realizing it's a pattern. And I think a prime example of that is all the stuff that we see, with all in the truth community, or even outside the truth community. It's very easy to get on YouTube and look at video after video after video. That's what the platform's there for. That's how they designed it. So I think it takes a bit of self-awareness to realize, that, and I put my hand up, and I was doing this a lot, especially in 2020. I found myself just watching video after video, and just after a while I was like, well, I'm not really doing anything. I'm wasting time. And quite often it was the same information over and over again as well, and I wasn't really learning anything new. So that diminishing returns, I was just getting diminishing returns, and I get it. We all want to kind of stay on top of things and stay aware and educated about what's going on. But yeah, there definitely is a fine line between, staying on top of things and moving your life forwards, at the same time.
I couldn't agree more. I've been quite fascinated for quite a long while in this sort of habit of humans, this addictive habit of humans to overconsume. And you just do not see it in other species. And when I'm talking about other species, I'm not saying that every other species is perfect and we're not. That's not the point at all. Every species is unique in terms of its gifts and challenges. But no wild animal overeats to a stage that they're obese and can't move and get away from predators, or can't raise their young properly, or have conditions that mean that they can't keep up with the herd or the pack, whatever it might be. And I've definitely I can resonate with what you were saying a lot, because particularly in 2020, I was so over consuming information. And as you say, a lot of it wasn't adding value, because it was more of being in an echo chamber of confirming beliefs that I'd actually got. And what I've loved over the last probably 3 or 4 months is I've started to sort of drop off on that. I mean, I've been dropping off for a long while, still keeping up with certain things. And I'm very grateful I'm very lucky, because I've got some lovely people that send me some really relevant stuff, so I can be a little bit more choosy. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm going to come on to the different roles that we all have on that in a minute. But going in, you mentioned that there's lots of live bands and live events coming to Australia. I've been to one. So I went last weekend up to see a live podcast show. It's called the High Performance Podcast, and they're doing a little tour. Sorry, I've got an itch. I've just been cleaning out the guinea pigs and my eyes are quite itchy from the hay. And that was fantastic, because not only for the content you see, but we met up with some old friends, and you're meeting new people and getting into the atmosphere of it. And I've been doing a lot more of revisiting family, elderly relatives, old friends, because what I was realizing is this overconsumption of information is actually a very real addiction, that it's very difficult, you know, as a content provider myself, how do I try and add value without adding to that issue is quite an interesting one, really. And I'm not saying I've got to the bottom of it, but it's something I'm very well aware of, which is why I like my discussions to be more questioning based rather than telling, because I think when we get it, humans have this habit of, you know, eating disorders, substance abuse disorders, but this information cascade and being stuck in that wheel. Bryce and I did a discussion last week about, you know, the difference between cults and communities, and it's a real issue, I think, at the moment, that a lot of people are caught in that. They've moved away from certain people in their real lives that they're no longer resonating with, and therefore move into this online community, which can be really beneficial for some people. But when it gets to a stage where you're not allowed to question and you're not allowed to move away from certain issues or have different opinions, then it becomes a real issue, I think. And a real issue as well if it's stopping you doing what you need to do to live a healthy, balanced life.
Yeah, in many ways, it's a cult within a cult, isn't it? And I think that it really depends on who you listen to and who you speak with, because as soon as you go outside, the other narrative, people are like, oh no, that can't be right. You know, that can't be the right. That can't be right. And that's the other thing. And I'm sure we'll get to this later. That's the other thing that really bothers me about this entire community is the fact that you almost can't question that narrative, you know.
Yeah, the lack of questioning in any area of your life, not being allowed to question, is a real red flag to me. And, you know, it's a bit like, I think most people watching this know that just because you're in the church doesn't necessarily mean that you're conducting yourself in a nice way. Just because you're a doctor doesn't necessarily mean that you've got no faults or areas for improvement. You know, whatever area of life we are in, every single individual has got light and dark within inside them. Every single individual is on their own path of discovery and evolving. And to make generalizations that, you know, putting everyone in a box and this judgment at all stages is really fascinating to see, actually, because we're so limited by a perspective. So the type of thing I do, obviously, as a holistic health coach, you know, one example is I work with people day in, day out, which I absolutely love, either with their own health challenges, and that health can be physical, emotional, spiritual, or with their animals. And the classic example when I get the consult form filled in is, oh, I eat a really healthy diet, or I give my dogs a really healthy diet. But what I mean as a healthy diet and what they mean as a healthy diet can be absolutely miles away. And this is where, when we make these generalized judgments about things, we can miss so much gold in the process, do you think?
Yeah. I think that you made a good point about humans are the only species that overconsumes. You would maybe have some stats around this. Like, what would you say is what are the chances, or what's the probability of an animal in the wild getting cancer or being obese? It's probably not very high, is it?
It's really low. I don't have exact figures because, of course, a lot of the time we don't know what animals in the wild die of, and quite often they'll be consumed by another animal or degrade before the studies are done. But in the wild, for example, no animal, whether it's a predator or a prey animal, is designed to stay the same weight the whole time. So our body's brilliant ability to lose and gain weight. So if you take something that most people will identify with, like a prey animal, like a herd of gazelle, when the rains come and the grasses grow, they'll lay down fat stores and they'll get really big, but then never, ever will they eat so much that they still can't run away quickly from predators. Or they're likely to put so much pressure on their joints that they're going to get arthritis and can't run away, because everything that they do is taking advantage of what's in the moment. Yes, you do get animals that store and hibernate and bury stuff, so pre-plan for the winter. And how much is that instinctive and how much is conscious thought? Will we ever know as humans? You know, scientists make you know, assumptions around that, but every single week a lot of these assumptions we've made about animals' behavior and intelligence levels is being debunked as rubbish. So the difference is it's always within defined boundaries, because the ones that do engage in that behavior will be eaten straight away, because they're going to be the ones that are caught by the lion. So there's this self-regulatory force. And also there's a lot of, if you watch horses even playing in a herd, it makes me so sad to see the way most humans keep their horses now. It's so unnatural, because horses will play and exercise each other a lot. And if you just keep them on their own or with one other horse in a small paddock, they can't do that, and they can't keep themselves healthy, and they can't keep up with their natural foraging behavior. So I think, for me, I know I'm waffling a bit, but I don't know a lot about depression in third world countries, but what I have read and been told is that it doesn't really exist, because people that are so consumed in their daily life to survival needs don't have time to sit there and be depressed. And it's a really hard one in terms of looking at where we've gone in our progression as humans in the Western world and saying how little of that serves us. Because when you look, you and I were talking about, we're very different generations, but even both of us, even you're a lot younger than me, but when you grew up, there were very few obese people. And now in both our countries, the vast majority of the population is very overweight, and this has a lot of significant health and lifestyle risks. It can take a lot of choices away from you, but it's a very dangerous trend, isn't it?
Yeah, and one thing that doesn't really help, and we know why this is happening, is the Australian of the Year, the woman who won the Australian of the Year here just like a couple of weeks ago. Her whole thing is body positivity. Like she was overweight once and she lost a bunch of weight, which is great, but I think they're using body positivity as an excuse. You know, it's like, you don't need to be slim, and of course you don't need to be anything. You know, you don't need to be the most jacked person. You don't need to be the fittest person. You don't need to be the healthiest person. But they're using it as, you know, that like they've redefined what fat is, you know, or obese is. So they use, well, that person is obese and they're happy with themselves. Are they really? I don't know. But it's body positivity. You can't say anything. It's not PC to say anything about them. And I had another point, but I forgot what it is. But oh yeah, when you go on dating apps and things like that, like the girls on the apps will say, and I'm not taking a swipe at girls, but this just happens for the girls, because guys don't have this definition. They will say, "Oh, I'm thick," and they'll spell it THICC. Like they're thick, but they're not fat. But we all know it's the same thing. You know, they just redefined it, and it just gives them an excuse not to do anything about it. You know, and guys would just use the excuse, oh, I'm tall, or I'm a guy, I don't need to be fit. You know, I can put on as much weight as I want. Right? So it works both ways, but I think it's just very toxic. You know, and we need to do away with political correctness, because that's the bane of everybody's existence. The more PC you are, the more you're not facing the truth, right?
Yeah, honest communication is absolutely vital. And, you know, I looked at myself and I thought, wow, look at my overconsumption. I mean, I have a very, very active lifestyle, and therefore I can eat an awful lot of food without putting on weight. However, the fact that I'm lucky enough to go to my fridge or my cupboards at any time and have a huge selection of food without really having to physically work for it at all isn't necessarily great for me, because it makes me lazy around certain choices. So again, over the last year, I've really got back into healthy creation of virtually all my meals from scratch. I've always done it a lot when the children were younger and everything, and then when I went through a year when neither of my children were at home, and it happened to be 2020 when I was quite obsessively looking at all this information, I got into much worse habits. And for me, making a conscious effort to get back into thinking, right, as a human being, I'm spending 100% of my existence in this lifetime in this physical suit. Why am I spending most of my money on my house or my car or clothes or whatever? I don't. I spend it on my animals. But the principle is our priorities have got so skew with, you know, where most families now haven't got the time because of the lifestyle, that how much is choice, how much is force, how much is coercion is a different decision. But we haven't even got time to prepare a healthy meal for our family with all the energy and love and creativity that goes into it. For me, shows me how off target we've got, because there's a huge difference between putting down a bowl of biscuits for your cat or dog and creating a healthy, balanced meal for them, where you're imparting that energy and really taking care to actually prepare it. And if we're not going to do it for ourselves, we're certainly not going to do it for our loved ones. And I think for me, anyone who's watching, you or I, is very well aware of what's got us to this place. The brainwashing. We know all that now. So for me, it's time for us to recognize it, stop moaning about it, stop talking about it. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It has happened and it's still happening. But what can we do each day to turn the corner? Because if we're on an individual level, if we're not making those changes ourselves, nothing in our external world is going to change. We can blame them for what they've done to us as much as we like. And I'm not getting away from the fact that it hasn't been a conscious choice for most people. It hasn't, because we've all been brainwashed. However, once that light bulb goes on, then it is a conscious choice. And from that moment onwards, your life can change if you choose it to.
Yeah, correct. I think it's just where people become unstuck is it's almost like you don't know where to begin, because there seems to be a lot of things, you know, because anybody can work on any number of areas of their life. There are so many things to work on. Well, this is really three: health, wealth, and relationships. But you know, within those, there are other things too. You know, so. But yeah, it can be a bit challenging to know like where to start. And I think a good place to start is really just the one that you need the most in that moment, or the one. I like, one of my mentors said, "What's the one thing that you could achieve that will help you achieve all the others at the same time?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so for instance, let's pretend that you really don't have much time to work out or make food or spend time with your family or whatever. Because you're always working, or you're just always at work. So what's the one thing that you can do that will take care of all of those problems or give you the time back? Probably a different job where you can work from home and earn more money, right? So you could go to the gym, but then you'd have even less time. You know, you could. I'm not saying don't go to the gym, but I'm saying maybe just focus on the one area first, and maybe also do a little bit of the other things just so you can keep active and things like that, and spend a little bit of time with your family or whatever it is. But if you take care of the money, it's usually the money. If you take care of the money and you earn more in a quicker time, you're going to get more time back, aren't you? And then you have more time to spend with how you want. So
I love that so much. I really love that. And I love the 2% rule as well, of like, okay, what can I do right here, right now, that's going to start changing a habit? So say I've got one of my lovely guests who I've spoken to before, a dear friend, Wendy Smith, and she was in a motorbike accident at 17 or 18 years old and was paralyzed. Her story is amazing. She's the most amazing woman. And she's coming on in a couple of weeks' time to talk about exactly this, because for all of us, I don't think there's one person on there, you know, again, whenever I'm saying all this stuff, I'm talking about myself as much as anyone else, where we get caught on this hamster wheel of where do I begin? Where do I begin? And, you know, for people that have got physical challenges, say you're really overweight or you're not as fit as you like, or you've lost your suppleness, or you've got physical ailments, can be so overwhelming to know where to start. So Wendy's going to come on and talk about this, because she's literally gone from being a healthy young teenager to paralyzed from the waist down overnight. So she's had to actually live through that trauma and journey. And I think hearing people's, you know, circumstances about how do you start. And for me, when I'm working with people and when I'm working on myself, I start one thing at a time, because I'm terrible. I'm so interested in loads of things. I'm really terrible at taking on too much at once. but there has to be that non-negotiable where you think, I am doing that. That is absolutely something I'm going to do. So what can you change or incorporate into your life right here, right now? Just a small step. So say it's physical things, you know, if you're cooking dinner, can you be doing squats or a few stretches or something whilst you're doing it? Literally, that really does make a difference. And
Or a
then,
treadmill. You can get a mini treadmill.
yeah,
You know, while you're working, or you can stand up at your desk and have a treadmill and put it on really slow, or you know,
yeah. And even
it's
just
like
sitting on a
3 miles
medicine
an hour or something.
yeah, sitting on a medicine ball instead of sitting on a normal chair, or setting the timer on your clock and just making sure for 5 minutes every hour you get up and do 5 minutes on a rebounder or something. You know, there can be so many different really accessible things that you can do that you can make really, really good fun, but you have to start somewhere. You know, the best time to have started was yesterday. The worst time is tomorrow, but all you can actually start is today. Don't worry about that you didn't start it yesterday, just start it today.
Yeah, and the other thing is that with all the information that we consume, and I've been in this position too many times to even count, is that when you're wanting to improve an area of your life, and if you get into this consumption habit where you watch a lot of videos or you buy a lot of products or whatever, or books and things, you just get overwhelmed. Like you just get overwhelmed with the overload of information, and you don't even do anything, right? And yeah, I've been in that position too many times. So I think, yeah, starting with one thing is great, because as you go, you build up momentum, and eventually you get something to a certain level where you're like, okay, all I need to really do is maintain it now, right? I don't need to put all the hours in that I was putting in. I could just do this, you know, a certain amount of time, and it becomes, you know, something that you can sustain, and then you can focus on another area. Like it's difficult. It's like spinning plates, isn't it? It's like it's really difficult to spin them all at once. You know, if you've got like 9 plates, but if you just do one first, and then you get that okay, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and you feel so good about yourself because you feel like you're actually living your life rather than someone else's life. Because, you know, yes, we do need some information to make the best decisions. You know, this is a perfect example, you know, about the more informed you are of different points of view, the more you're going to make a decision that's right for you or your family. But again, it's never worth looking back and just berating yourself for things you've done in the past. It's always worth, okay, what do I want to do moving forward? There's a reason why, you know, a lot of you know, ancient people and not ancient, a lot of spiritual people have their different totem animals, and for every totem animal there's a lesson that you can learn. So for example, take a snake. You know, lots of people want a nice cuddly koala or a cheetah or a lion as their totem animal, but a snake sheds its skin. It's not a conscious decision. It happens as it changes, because a snake, as a very part of its being, knows that you're not the same thing at 7 years old as you are at 37 years old. If you can't let go of old bits and get rid of and slough off the old, you can't make way for the new, and you can't make way for growth. And I think looking at what we can let go of is often the first point of call for what we want to make changes in our life. You know, what can we let go of? What habit can we let go of? What behavior can we let go of? What obsession? Because actually, you know, so much of our time we're spending our day over helping things, and a lot of what the intel or news that comes out, we don't know what's true. We don't know. That can be a lot of brainwashing in exactly the way as the other media. There's no such thing as a clear black and white truth, but I think everyone's realizing there's no savior coming to rescue us anymore. And what's the point of being here if you're not living the best possible life you can now?
Yeah. JCK just released a video about that last night, which I watched, which is interesting, and I think it's very multifaceted, like everything is. But I do think that, let's just pretend, you know, like all the stuff that we thought was going to happen happened. Like then what? You know, you're still going to have all the problems that you have, apart from the money problem. You know, you're still going to have, if you don't have good health, you're still going to have bad health, aren't you? You don't have good relationships, you're still going to have bad relationships. So, but the only difference is that now you have more money, hopefully that you would invest some of that into, you know, things that will help you level up as a human, right? Then you can go and help others.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I listened to JCK's video and I thought it was absolutely brilliant and from the heart. And it was really, really interesting to what Bryce and I were talking about the day before on my channel. So it's worth people having a look at that as well. We were just perhaps a little bit more guarded in how we put it across. And I love JCK's passion of how she did it, because it's true and from the thought. And people, we take so much as criticism. So I'm going to do this as my next book club, because quite frankly, this is the best book I've ever read. Now, it's from my friend Danielle recommended this to me, and it's Mutant Message Down Under, and it was written back in 1995, and it's basically supposedly fictional, although it's debatable whether it is fictional, about an American woman spending 4 months in the desert with an Aboriginal tribe. And it is unbelievable. I'll put the link below, and I'm going to do a book club on it, folks, because it is just incredible, the messages in this book. And there's so much beautiful wisdom in there. And when anyone who's talking about med beds will read the healing experiences here from this tribe and how they heal someone's broken leg literally overnight. It's everything that we're talking about. The power is all within us. And what's beautiful about it, there's so much beauty in it. Honestly, I can't wait for you to get it, David, and have a discussion with you to see what you think, is the honesty of the communication. So this Aboriginal tribe, I can't remember their name, they speak very little with words because they're all using telepathic communication. Now, that's how I'm communicating with my animals all the time, not to their ability. Their ability is off the scale better than mine. But how much we use words, and I'm laughing at myself as I'm saying this because I use far too many words to get a point across. But they give this beautifully honest feedback to this Western woman in the desert. But none of it, the intent behind it is only to help. So she doesn't take it as an insult or person. She's like, well, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is absolutely brilliant. And there's a real difference between someone that gives honest communication from the heart because they really appreciate that person more they do than someone else that's criticizing. You can say the same words, but the intent behind it. And for me, this has always been how I tell how deep my friendships are, is can we have those conversations and know that it's from such a place of love that the other person doesn't take offense at all. And I think that's been so lost in our society at the moment because we're so judgmental of ourselves and carrying so much shame and judgment about ourselves that, of course, if we're holding that, we can't help but project that onto our relationships with others of whatever species they may be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like getting a text and misreading it because of the, because you can't really tell the tone in a text. So, this has happened to me a lot when I used to, ages ago, I'd read a text and I'm like, what does that person mean? And it would literally put me into a state for a couple of days where I was just completely depressed. And it could have been nothing at all, it's just the way I read it. And it's exactly the same thing. It's all just based on our programming, isn't it? So it's our view of the world, whatever that is, and everybody has a different one. So yeah, it's peeling back the layers and doing the self-work, really, isn't it? To upgrade your mindset and upgrade your view on life, really, is what I've learned over the last 10 years or so, since I started doing more personal development, is really upgrading your upgrading your belief system, in many ways, because it's your beliefs that give you the results that you get in life.
Absolutely. And what's so beautiful is that we're all on that journey of self-development, but we're all doing it in completely different ways because we're all so unique. And, I sort of laugh. So, some people sort of said to me throughout this week, how can you stay with your husband? Because he doesn't believe anything of, the conspiracy theories. He doesn't believe any of that. And I'm like, well, he's not attracted any of this crap into his life at all. He's never been asked to wear a mask. He's never even considered having this. He's never even been asked by his employer to have this because it's just not even in his reality. So there's so many different ways that we can achieve the end result. And And we all should honor ourselves and do it in the way that's right for us. So I'm so grateful for, say, my friends like Mel Kay, who is a really shit hot political reporter and really, really good researcher. But it doesn't have to mean that we've all got to have that. Thank goodness I can really appreciate her skills of that, but realize it's not me. And then I can add different value to things. And again, from this book, you're going to see how amazing it is when you really, really appreciate everyone's piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And we're not all meant to be doing it in the same way. And we're all do it at our own pace as well, about when it's right for us. But, you know, there's so many times where I've got an email or read a message and I've interpreted it one way, and then I'll show it to someone else and they've interpreted it completely different. The message is the same. It's just what was in my head and what was in their head about how we choose to interpret it. And I think this is what happens in life all the time. And it keeps coming back to the same old principles. Work on yourself, do the inner work, appreciate when those triggers come up, because then you've got some information that you can do something about.
Yeah, you know, that's good. Yeah, because that's noticing that is also, you know, it is obviously a self-awareness of in and of itself, of course, but most, you know, that's, if anybody's ever stuck with things to work on, just look for when you get triggered. Like that's a thing, like you said, that's a thing to work on, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, I love it when Bruce Lipton, I adore Bruce Lipton so much, because, you know, being the age I am now, as a society, we're so ageist, you know, there's so much judgment put on a number that's, you know, that you say you are. And again, in loads of cultures of the world, they don't know. People ask me, it's so funny. I mean, all my animals are rehomed, labeled by humans as rescues, but so I don't know when a single one of them was born. There's not a single animal I've got now that I know their exact birth date. Some of them I've got an indication of the year, like Romeo, my New Forest pony. I know what year he was born in, but I've got no idea the exact date. And it doesn't matter to them. None of my dogs are saying I should be at this level of health because I'm this age. That's a purely human construct. And it's
yeah, exactly. Or the excuse about getting old and oh, well, he's old. That person's old. Like, of course he's going to have this health problem. But no,
not at all. And there's so much science. And what I love so much about Bruce Lipton is he's such a genius and he does it with such humor. But he didn't get to these realizations till he was about in his 50s, which is amazing because there is no hurry for this. There's no race. My friends call me hurry up because I'm always in a hurry because I'm so excited about everything. And I can laugh at myself now because I'm realizing it's hysterical. Whereas other people go through life at a different we'll all get there. You know, it's the tortoise and the hare scenario, isn't it? Which one's going to win? Yeah. I'm not criticizing myself for that enthusiasm, but I can see the downsides of it. I can see how it makes me lose focus and how I can sometimes miss the moment. So not wanting to be like everyone else, but appreciating the difference and the beauty and the lessons of how we all conduct ourselves. You know, when the lockdown hit, one of my neighbours is the nicest chap you'll ever meet. And he's struggled in society where we live, because I live in a very, very snobby area of the world and of the UK. So most people judge people now on how much they earn. So this is where my joke about, you know, we'd go to dinner parties when we first moved into the area. And the first question people would ask me was, what does your husband do? And that's why I just got to the stage of fuck all, because I thought, why, you know, you're talking to me and you're not asking what do I do even. You're asking what does my husband do? Big trigger for me, I tell you, really big trigger. Didn't go down too well when I said fuck all. But, you know, it is ridiculous, isn't it? And when the lockdown happened, I think everyone appreciated my neighbour in a way that they'd never appreciated him before, because he hasn't lived a traditional life. He's older than me and he left school. He was really dyslexic. Back in those days, they didn't diagnose dyslexia. They just called you thick. So he couldn't read and write properly by the time he left school. He had a very difficult upbringing. He is the salt of the earth and the most community-minded person I've ever met in my life. And suddenly all these judgments of all the people that have got the high-powered jobs and the big cars and the big houses, I'm like, I know who I'd rather be like. He's so happy. He's amazing. He's the nicest neighbour you could ever meet. He's so helpful. Honestly, I'm just like, wow, our values have gone so wrong in areas of the world like where I live. We've got it so wrong about where we put our attention. It's really quite frightening.
Yeah. I had an experience yesterday where I was at this event and we were talking about. I was talking to a bunch of girls about. It's a bit easy. Might be easy if I just set it up because it's going to be weird otherwise. But anyway, one of the girls asked me where I go to the gym. I said, "Oh, which gym I go to?" And I said, "Oh, it's this. This is the gym." And she goes, "Oh, is it north or south of the river?" And I was like, "I'm not really north or south. I'm kind of like in the middle, kind of somewhere." So I kind of got a little bit. I never know how to answer that question because it's not one or the other. And she goes, "Oh, that was a bit awkward." I was like, "Yeah, it's because I don't live north or south." She's like, "Well, where do you live?" And I told her. She's like, "Oh," and and then she started just giving me crap about it, like my suburb that I live in. But when people kind of, hard to explain because I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said kind of like 3 sentences all in a row about the area, and obviously just kind of giving me crap about it. But I kind of wondered today. I was like, what would she have said if I had said a suburb that was quote unquote worse than the one that she lived in? Like, would have her reaction been the same? You know what I mean? Like, because apparently I'm a snob because I live in this area. But if I live in a worse area than her, does that make her a snob? Because obviously she's got some insecurity about it. You know what I mean? So would she? That's my question. Is like, would she have said something like giving me crap about that because it's a crappy suburb? You know, like.
It is so interesting. The assumptions we make. I mean, the good old Don Miguel Ruiz, the 4 agreements and the 5th agreement, don't make assumptions is one of the key things. And we make so many assumptions that we're not even aware of. So, for example, I've got ponies. I did have 3. I'm now down to 2. And when my children tell them they've got ponies at the bottom of the garden, they get the piss taken out of them so much because they all assume they're rich, spoiled kids and they're snobs. But all of our ponies came to me for free and they were all rescue and they worked really hard to look after them. But because you've got horses, you're suddenly categorized as a certain type of person and a spoiled and things like this. And it's hysterical just how many judgments we make at a subconscious level and at a conscious level. And as you say, it just shows the insecurities of ourselves. It's like, it's funny, isn't it? It's such a shame. We have to change. And this is where I quite often laugh because I think we do need a reset. We need a complete reset, not their reset. But as humans, we can't be allowed to carry on the trajectory we're on because it's not serving any of us. We're the most unhappy generation ever. You look at the people that our grandparents and my parents, your grandparents have been involved in world wars. And yet they've got this zest for life. You look at the Holocaust survivors and things, and now we've got so much often handed on a plate. I'm not saying people haven't got difficult situations. I know everyone's situation is different, but we're so off course about what we judge as a fulfilling life. No wonder we're all searching for something else all the time. No wonder we're all unhappy.
Yeah, it's just so divisive, isn't it? Like the judgments that we all place. I do my best, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I do my best not to pass judgment, at least out loud, because I lost my train of thought. You have to say something, and it will come back.
But yeah, no, I mean when we're not passing judgment.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Personally, I don't care. I don't care like where anybody lives. I just don't. All I care about is if they're a decent person, and if now that she knows where I live, does that automatically change her view of me based on the experience that she's had up until that point? You know what I mean? Because it doesn't make any sense, does it? Like everything was normal, but all of a sudden her programming kicked in. That was her subconscious taking over all these things that she said. Because that was her way of dealing with it. She probably didn't even know that she was doing it. But yeah, it's just funny, isn't it? Like now,
it's just fascinating, and we all do it because we're all so programmed. But you know, imagine, I was thinking today, because I was saying when I came on screen today, so I was really self-conscious because my skin's really broken out today, and I'm lucky enough to be able to put makeup on to cover it, to improve my self-confidence to come on videos. And normally I have really good skin, and for some reason it's really broken out at the moment. And it's so interesting because I thought, wow, my day would be completely different if I didn't have a mirror.
Yeah,
And
well,
this is
wouldn't
one of the
everybody's?
other things in the book. You know, they're out in the middle of the wilderness. They haven't got a mirror. So when you haven't got a mirror, that self-judgment goes. So dogs and
Yeah,
cats and horses, they're not looking at themselves in the mirror and then seeing all these things. And so I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, God, why have I got spots coming out? It's obviously my hormones going a bit if I know it is my hormones. And I feel really good in myself, but it's amazing how quickly that snowballed into me saying, oh my goodness, I've got spots, and now I'm going to have to put some makeup on, and I'm going on camera. And I was like, this is ridiculous, this whole cascade of events. Whilst actually, if I didn't have a mirror, it wouldn't affect my day or my operations at all. It would just be my body getting rid of what it needs to get rid of. And thank you,
yeah,
body, for not keeping it inside and getting rid of it somehow. Now, I'm laughing at myself for this because this is an example of programming, and I'm immediately thinking, oh my God, you know, everyone's going to judge me and say, look awful, and I've got spots and things. My cat didn't care. When I went to feed the horses and the guinea pigs and the rabbits, not one of them looked at me and said, oh, you've got spots today. You know, it's just
yeah,
hysterical, isn't it? How, and this is, I think, is a judgment. It all comes from how we judge ourselves. We would not judge other people if we weren't really judging ourselves at that level. We just wouldn't do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the other reason why we need to work on ourselves, because the easier, like the less that you can judge. For instance, it's very easy to give yourself a hard time. You know, it's very easy
Yeah.
to give yourself like, oh, I should have done that differently, or I should be further along in life, or I should be earning this amount, or I should be healthy, or whatever. Right? We can think of a billion different things to judge ourselves on, but the more that you peel back the layers and the more work you do on yourself, over time those judgments disappear. You know, like we may not get rid of all of them, but you know, we can do our best to try.
I think it's really great. And we didn't come out being judgmental. You know, you don't look at a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old never goes up to another 2-year-old. Well, first and foremost, they've done experiments. And if you put a toddler, you know, whatever age people classify as a toddler, if you put them in a pen and the toddler's happy and you put a bunny rabbit and an apple in there, the toddler never, ever picks up the bunny rabbit and tries to eat it. It picks up the apple. But secondly, you put a group of young children together, they never go up. A young, really young child never goes up to another child and says, oh, you're fat, or you're ugly, or I don't like the color of your hair, or your trousers don't match your top. It's just not even in their consciousness. It's a learned behavior. It is definitely a learned behavior from our programming. And so
Yeah,
then by the time you get to adulthood, you've got a lot of this unprogramming and you can't recognize it unless, so every time we're putting out a criticism of someone else, all we're really doing is saying, oh my God, I haven't worked on that myself. And that's your lesson. So going back to Bruce Lipton, why I love his message so much, he said, you don't need to go to a therapist and find out what your program is. You just need to look at your life. Your life that right
yeah,
here, right now, is a direct reflection of what your programming is. If you
yeah, absolutely.
honestly assess it, honest, if you're really brutally honest with yourself, which bits of your life are you happy with? Great, the programming's work for you. Ignore those bits. You know, some programming be positive. It's great. We don't have to learn
Yeah, for
how to
sure.
walk each day. It's great that we don't have to learn how to drive our car each day. So just accept and be grateful for the positive attitude bits of it. But those bits of your life that you're not happy with, they're the ones where your programming is in conflict with your highest interests. Those are that's straight away where you need to work on.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example of this guy I met. Was a friend of my housemates when I was living in Melbourne. So we're out one day, and I have these green pants that I bought in London, and they're kind of, I don't know what shade of green, but they're green, and I like them, and nothing wrong with green pants. But anyway, my this guy, this guy said to my housemate, "Is David gay?" And he goes, "No, he's not." And I said, because I used to get that quite a lot. I used to get people. Some people would think I was gay. Others would say, "No, he's definitely not." But then it was always a thing. It was a recurring theme. So I was like, I wanted to find out, like, what were the different reasons. And one time this girl at work said, "Oh, it's just because you can talk to girls really well." I was like, well, why is that an indication, for one? And then this guy said, it's because you have green pants and because you're fit and you go to the gym. And I was like, well, what the hell does that mean? Like, so it's just based on their programming, obviously.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that, and where the programming can come undone and keep people stuck, is that this guy is never going to get fit because he wasn't fit. Because he associates that with being gay, so he's never going to want to look gay, is he? So he's just never going to be fit. And I just find that it's funny, isn't it? That because he was unaware of it, but that's just this unconscious thing that he has. That unless he does the work and breaks through it, he's just always going to be unhealthy.
That's such a brilliant example. It's such a brilliant example, and I honestly every day I am laughing. The more inner work I do, and I've been doing it for so long, and I've still got so much to do. Thank God, I'm really pleased I've still got so much to do, because I'm a strong believer that once you get to the stage where you've got anything else to identify, it's time out. You'll be removed from this current body, and I'm really enjoying myself at the moment. So I don't want to go anywhere at the moment. You know, like, I do not see this as a prison planet at all. It is so beautiful. I'm looking out, I'm talking to you, one of my best friends on the other side of the world. So I'm really grateful for using technology like this. And whilst I'm talking to you, outside my window is my apple tree, which is absolutely alive with so many birds. I've got bird feeders all over it. And then I can see my cats in the distance sitting on the roof, and there's one above me here and there's one in the basket here. I mean, what could be better? But when I look at these areas of my life, I am so grateful for the friends I've got that point out my blind spots to me. I'm so grateful for it. And those are my really good friends when they give me feedback, because my really good friends, I know, are doing it from a place of helpfulness and kindness, not bitchiness.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's one of those fine line situations, isn't it? Where depending on, there was a woman that I used to hang out with in Melbourne, and she was into business, and she had this business, and we were talking about this friend of hers, and she goes, "Oh, that person, she's too PC or PD. She's too PD." I was like, "What do you mean PD?" She said, "Oh, she's too into personal development." I was like, "Okay, well, why is that bad?" And she goes, "Well, she kind of shoves it in your face and stuff." And I was like, "Well, look, correct me if I'm wrong, but perhaps," because she was also supposed to be a life coach or a dating coach. Right? I was like, just the fact that you don't like personal development tells me that you're not going to progress that far, because you don't want to do the work. You've got there's a stigma attached, or you've got some friction inside of you that's causing this. That's why you made that statement. And I don't speak to her anymore, but maybe, I don't know, she took it, maybe that wasn't the last time I spoke to her, but it's true, isn't it? So yeah, it's the same as the gym example. If you have a preconceived notion about a certain thing that you see as bad, even if that thing could help you, then you're never going to be able to overcome it until you first kind of reconcile with it.
It's so true. And I've got loads of relationships that have gone that way, where we've been having a conversation and they've actually asked my opinion on something, and then I've given it, and that's sort of been the end of the relationship. So, but then for me, that's a sign that it would have ended anyway. There's no point for me carrying forward relationships on false pretenses. It might be very painful at the time. And I learned to get better at how I put things across. Obviously, I didn't put it across in a way that was well accepted. But equally, I think, there was a danger where people just, there's so much political correctness now that you cannot have a conversation without someone taking offense. It's virtually impossible to do. And, when people go across, there's lots of messages that come across, and it might not be your way, but can you appreciate, it doesn't matter, it's not meant to be your way. I mean, if we were we don't want to. I don't think there's a single person watching this channel that wants to go the AI route and turn all humans into AI. That's what will happen if we're all expected to react in the same way. We're robots. So be careful what you wish for, you know, enjoy it. You know, I looked at, let's take the JCK video again. People, that was Marmite. People loved it or hated it. It doesn't matter. That's about them, not about her. None of it's about her. It's about them. Anyone who's chosen to watch that message, there was a reason why you chose to click on it and watch it. And if that's triggered you, then that's about you, not about JCK giving the message. And what can you learn? Just shifting that subtle shift about why does it trigger me? It's really, really good. Are there areas of your life, just as an example, where you don't think, and I'm saying this because this applies to me, are there areas of my life where I do not feel I can speak my truth? Absolutely, yes. Because of what we've talked about whether, you know, other people are ready to hear that. And is it invited? You know, giving uninvited feedback isn't kind unless, you know, as a parent, you're giving uninvited feedback the whole time. Otherwise, your children wouldn't survive. So there's always certain things, you know, for my dogs, is it in their best interest that I can sometimes be really harsh about their recall? Because that could be the difference between saving their life, because there's cars on the road. And if they run off chasing a deer, run across the road, it happened to one of my mum's dogs that got run over, you know. So there's some times where it's good to just do it. And there's other times where you've got more choices in it. And I suppose, again, the message for me about all of this is how can we stop judging ourselves more? Because everything in the world is going to change when we stop that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is quite common where people are they're more likely to give out advice. I call it criticism because it's usually unwarranted criticism than receive it. You know, as soon as you say something like, there's a guy that he asked to hear some of my songs. So I sent him some stuff. I hadn't released them yet, and he's like, "Oh, that's out of time. That's too loud, or whatever. That's too fast, or whatever." And like, he hasn't released anything. Like, you know, I'm not. First of all, I didn't ask him for what's wrong with it. He asked for it when he wanted to listen to it. So okay, you can listen to it. But he hasn't released a damn thing. Like, why would I care what he thinks? You know, like.
And that's why he hasn't released everything, because if any of us wait for something to be whatever our definition of perfect is, we'd never do anything in life. I mean, no one would ever have children if they waited till they were ready and responsible enough to have children. The population would die out.
Right.
But never.
Yeah.
You never
Well,
feel you're responsible enough to have children. You never feel you're capable enough, but you learn. And luckily, most of us, you know, survive. And you know, not everyone does, but you know, it is a standing joke between most parents. It's like, well, talk about
that's a double-edged sword. That's a double-edged sword, though. It's one of those things where, yes, you should jump in, and we should always jump into things before we're completely ready, because we'll never be completely ready. But you know, there are just some people that shouldn't have kids.
Yeah,
there are just some people that shouldn't have kids. You know.
Absolutely. And some people that shouldn't have animals as well. There's some people that shouldn't have animals. So, you know, do you know everything, and do you continue to learn every day from what they teach you, whether it's a child or an animal? Yes. But when I mean you're not ready, you do need to be ready to 100% commit to it.
Right. Yeah.
You don't need to have all the answers. You know, you can't possibly know what you're going to do if your baby has colic until your baby has colic. And then you'll frantically research, but you won't necessarily research in advance because you might be energetically enjoying that in. You know, my two children were completely different, you know, so I thought I had it sus for the second one, and she taught me, no, I didn't. You really didn't know what you were doing. But so I mean, emotionally, you should be ready to dedicate the time and attention it needs. But equally, you can't wait. Like with a song, you can't. Everyone you listen to will have a different opinion on your music, every single person. And you could give it to that same person and he just had a really brilliant experience, and he'd have heard it and felt it completely differently. You know, 10 minutes can make a complete difference to your judgment on something, can't it? Depending what's shifted in your emotions in that time.
Yeah.
I love it. So you have been, I've got walking down the garden. My husband's literally walking down the garden carrying Idris the cat over his shoulder. I mean, he's so affectionate, that cat. You
Have
have,
you got a cat behind your shoulder? Behind, is that a cat in the?
I've got a chicken and
Oh no, there's a cat. There's a cat on the. There's a cat on the calendar, and it looks like there's a cat sitting
yeah,
on
so
the.
cat's there, and there, that's my picture, man. And I've got a cat, Coco, down in the basket there. I've got Pumpkin sitting on top of the roof there. I've got Idris on Mark's thing. So there's cats everywhere. It's my favourite thing about where I live is look, there's a fluffy cat.
Yeah.
So in terms of, right, what next for you? So you are really going for it with your music, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, as we were talking off camera before, I'm one of those people that gets bored pretty easily. So after I kind of, you know, obviously there's more to achieve in the realm that I'm in now. Of course, there always is, but I'm just. Sometimes you think, you know, things like, you know, things always happen for a reason. So I think if you've got this downtime where you're not doing as much work and you've got the time available to, that's one thing about, you know, being able to work for yourself and not being in a 9 to 5. It's not just because in a 9 to 5, quite often you're not busy all the time either.
Yeah.
But you're on the clock, so you don't have the time to think about your dreams and aspirations so much, and utilize that time to the best of your ability. But you know, when you're, you know, and that's why they want to keep us in those situations. But yeah, I'm going to be, yeah, just investing more time into music now, even more than I am, which is quite a lot. I do a lot of music, but that's what I want to do. So yeah, the plan will be to move into transition into that, you know, later this year sometime.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Because it's been a big detour, you know. I've taken so many detours to get here, and I can't often wonder, like, what would it have been like if I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. I know why I didn't, is because I didn't have the mindset and the belief system for it at the time. But if things had been different and I did have that, then we wouldn't be having the conversation anyway, because I would have done it even before then, you know. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's always, there's so many what ifs, but it's such a waste of energy, isn't it? So
yeah, it's silly.
I'm really hoping that I can learn. If there's anyone watching that can help me, I want to really share a lot more of my day with the animals with people on videos and things. I haven't quite worked out how I hold a camera and film things and do it.
Get a gimbal. Get a gimbal.
Oh, what's a gimbal?
Ginbal. It's kind of like, you can get, I'll send you some links afterwards.
Okay.
But it's a little thing people use for blogging, vlogging and stuff. So you hold it, you might be able to.
And can the camera turn around on it and things? So
yeah, you can do that. You can turn around and it can follow you. So
oh wow, okay, yeah, send me a link. So you see, there you go. You just have to ask, because I'm so passionate about spending the day out in nature and the animals, and I see so much amazing things, but then I can't capture it because I don't know about things like this. So that's the thing. So that's what I'm really planning to share, that because there's just messages and information for everyone, and the message will be different for everyone that watches it. So that's what I'm really excited doing now that we're moving out of winter into that, is to sort of get a little device like that so I can capture a lot more of this stuff and share it with people, and they can take the messages that they need from that out of it. And then for me, it's a win, because then I can be incorporating even more of my animals into my daily life, because that will become part of my work, so to speak, which is a win-win for all of us, really.
Yeah, and those types of videos are very interesting, you know, seeing day in the life videos where things are spliced, and you've got, you know, you can show people your daily routine and different things that you do for your health and things like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about doing that, because it just means, you know, it just helps sort of share and show tips, and some person think, oh, that's a good idea, or I could do that, or I could do this. And also it's amazing how much you do. I mean, I fit an awful lot into my day and I absolutely love it, but this will enable me to combine things even more and sort of combine my work and personal life even more. So I'm really excited about that. So there might be some dodgy, shaky things, but when David sends me the link of this thing, I'm going to get it, and then I'll just experiment and do what I always do and learn as I go along. So any final words that you wanted to share before we finish today?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, you know, now's better time than ever just to really plan your life.
Yeah.
plan it, create it, create it how you want to. We're all masterful creators. We just haven't been taught properly, or because we're always creating, and if we don't take, like, not making a decision is still making a decision.
Yeah.
Not making the decision to do whatever it is that you want to do is making a decision to stay where you are. So
I love that. And remember, if you do decide to come to the UK this year, then I'm happy to be a chauffeur and drive you around to some lovely places. So
thank you. That'd be great.
I'm really, really excited about the possibility of over the next sort of year or two, just meeting up with some of my really good friends in person. Again, just looking to manifest and make that happen. I love being where I am, and I don't really like leaving all my furry family, but equally I love meeting people in person that you've got those connections with. So be exciting to see how that happens over the next few years. So
yeah, for sure. And hopefully we can get access to those maglev trains.
Yes.
And we can get there in a split second, or 15 minutes or whatever it is.
That's what I'm hoping. All that on a dragon quite appeals to me.
Oh, I've got a story about a dragon. I'll tell you later.
Okay, brilliant. I really, really would like to go on a dragon ride. So if there's any out there watching, just feel free to come and pick me up. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Really appreciate all of you. Let us know what's happening for you. Let us know what you're working on. I love seeing what people are working on themselves at the moment and what realizations they're coming to. So anyone's watching this, thanks for spending the time with us. And I'm sure we'll be back for another chat across the very big pond soon. Thanks, David.
Yeah. Cheers, Kath.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. My goal is to inspire as many people as I can to live their best lives, to stay curious, and to raise their consciousness and that of the collective. So to do this, I need to reach as many people as possible, and this needs your help. If you feel drawn, would you be willing to share your favourite episode with 5 different people? This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. If you feel drawn to do that, I will be very, very grateful. All the links and discount codes where applicable for all the products that I support are on my 2 websites, catherineedwards.life and catherineedwardsacademy.com. All of the products are personally tried and tested by me, my family, and my clients. And finally, please do press the follow or subscribe button, depending which platform you're listening on. And above all, stay curious and stay free.